If you just joined us, this is the weekend show showing on ABS television this beautiful Saturday morning, and we're having a great time already in the studio. At this point, we'll be catching up on issues from the past week and then the outgoing week. We're still in the week though, but then in just a couple of hours, the week will be gone. So at this time, we'll be introducing our guest. He is very vocal, a young Nigerian he has a PhD actually, and he's very vocal on national issues. Those on Facebook and other social media will know what I'm talking about. Join me as we welcome Dr. Justin Nwankwo, a lecturer at the Federal Polytechnic, Oko.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Doc, first I would like to know, how is the cold treating you?
It's a wonderful weekend, and we are enjoying the cold. It's all part of the weather that we are talking about. Part of it is that it keeps on changing the human person and making us even far better than we were the other week. So it's a wonderful, the rains are here with us and making the weather beautiful, especially for people who have beautiful memories to share.
Well, that can only come from a philosopher. By the way, his area of specialization is philosophy, and he's a PhD holder, like I mentioned earlier. So Doc will be catching up on issues from the past week. You know, of course, the 2018 budget has just been passed, and we're happy. You know, it's a good thing. This is 5 months into the year, and the month is almost over, and it's more like we're expected to be happy that the budget for the year has been passed. How does it rub off on you? I mean, the passage of the budget at this time.
Well, it is a mixed feeling. I think it comes with nostalgia and then also with some elements of ecstasy. So it's a double-barreled emotion. Feeling of nostalgia because this budget was presented to the National Assembly by Mr. President on November 2017. So you can now imagine that after about 6 months and thereabout, this budget is being passed, and it is for the fiscal year of 2018.
Yes, exactly.
So you can now see that feeling of nostalgia is justified, and it's not just about me. It's about every sound Nigerian who understands what a budget means and what impact it has to do in the life of the people. Millions of Nigerians, numbering over 180 million people. And so then at the other end, because it has been passed, we are happy and we expect the economy to be not only jacked up, but also to begin to see the fruits of a budget that has been passed. We begin to see it trickling down to the grassroots in all elements of the facets of the budget. So it is a double feeling, but I think it is more of nostalgia than of ecstasy. Because that is
nostalgia. Yes.
Nostalgia, yes. Before this is 5 months into the year 2018, the fiscal year, and then 2 months since the budget was passed, so making it close to 6 months plus. And we begin to ask questions. I don't think this will be the last time the budget will be passed late. Let's pray this is the last time. But looking at the economy, what do we stand to gain when we have running the economy for months without a budget?
Without a budget, exactly.
That's just like I said, when you move it away from that vocabulary I've used, which is nostalgia, you come in quickly into its structural content. Let me say what we call contextualization for those who are economists, even those who are elementary followers of the everyday accounting. It is a dangerous trend. And like what we have now, I hope you know that this assent that was given just about 3 days ago, and from what the National Assembly agreed upon, because they were placed under a fix, they were trying to grapple with when do we end the fiscal year? Does this budget run to 2018 and end? Or will it continue till the next budget? And that is where they anchored it on. They anchored it that is going to run till the next budget.
So, which we don't know when.
So we don't know when. So like you mentioned, the danger, like I said, and it's then I'm using the right vocabulary because it is dangerous. We are now running a budget that is not equated under any fiscal year. So that means that at every point, what you are looking at is a very serious danger of we running a cycle that is not in itself defined.
Yes.
So we don't know when the next budget will be passed. That means we keep on running this one. As a matter of fact, what had been happening from that November when this other new one came in till now?
Okay,
Why yes. appropriating the bill?
Would you suggest there should be shutdown of government like US does in cases of delay in budget passage?
Well, shutting down the government is at the extreme part of it.
Yes.
Okay. Is at the extreme part of it. Those areas are more or less like advanced democracies. Okay. There are the basics. There are also what you call the enablers and the drivers for such a thing to happen in such places. But we can do it here. But when we do it here, it will look as if to say our people will, at the end of the day, suffer, the masses. You understand? When we shut down the government. So we can only keep on improving the system. Okay. We can only keep on trying to pressure these executives and the National Assembly to do what they ought to do at the right time. Exactly. But without missing words, if this trend continues, the people at certain time might have to begin the journey of what we call the Arab Spring, and maybe this time around the Sahara Spring. Yes, because we must have to accept the reality. If government continues to look upon the people as people who cannot do anything, they do anyhow they want. I mean, you should understand the basic principles guiding a budget. Yes. This is what most people do in their families. This is what guides whatever that happens. Exactly. So at the end of the day, you allow the people to. I hope you know the amount of suffering in the system when there is no money in circulation, and when there is no. And again, we are running an economic recovery plan by the federal government. So how do you now run this economic recovery plan when your budgets are not only undulating, like as if to say you are on a plain or on a mountain, they are also incongruous. So it is a dangerous trend to democracy, especially African democracy, Nigerian experience. So it is a dangerous one. If we continue that way, the people might have to do what you have just requested that they do, to rise up and stop all of these mercantile system of democracy that we are practicing.
Doc, away from that, let us bring it to the issue of the figures in the budget. Of course, I can say that I've done an analysis, but some people have gone ahead to analyze what they have page by page. I looked at what an analyst was saying on one of the national television stations, and he said he's gone through the pages, and there are issues as well with the figures. Each time we have issues with the figures in the budget, and these questions are coming up. But do you think that at this time that we should still be having those contentious issues? Because it's as if there's no let in this. Each time we have the same issues. Are we getting better? I don't think so. We just go over the maze. We don't have a path through it. Are we supposed to be having these issues of figures even at this time?
Well, if I must have to be sincere with you, I have followed up this current budget that has been passed by the National Assembly. I must have to appreciate what they did. I hope you know, in the terms of figures, what the executive presented to them has been a little kind of shot up by 508 billion. So from 8.5 trillion to 9.2 trillion. So you can now see that their explanation of the 6% increase which they did in the budget is a kind of areas where they felt they were trying only to augment what the federal government did not put in place. Ironically, these budgets, from the budget office, you understand that each ministry and MDS, they come up with what they think is commensurate for them within the year. Period. So it's not about these budgets are not done on air. These ministries come up with their own different budgets. Okay, so it is what they conglomerate in the budget office and then bring it up to the Federal Executive Council. And these are all the things they look at before they start moving it to the National Assembly. So if truly we want to do what you call a surgical incursion into the details of the budget, we could also even question the thought pattern and even the mindset of the legislatures looking into the budget. When you make that surgical incursion, I use the word surgery because in a surgery it is always precise. If we move into a surgical expression of that, we will find out that were it to be that all these ministries have projected and presented when they have gone in-house their own budgets, I find it a little bit in Congress and a little bit tighty for the what do you call it again, legislatures to come up and start adding funds there again.
Yes.
This could also be maybe from what they are seeing from their constituencies and so on, but then it's all good for the people. But we do not so much rely on the figures of 9.1 and so on. I am only looking at the gap, because we need to close the gap between recurrent expenditure and then our current expenditure, our capital expenditure. We need to. And I think in this budget, I have to give them kudos. As of last year budget, the gap between recurrent was higher than the capital expenditure. But this time around, I think with what they did in the legislative corner, both the Senate and the House of Reps, I think they were able to bridge that gap. And that is exactly what we need to do. Indeed, if we must go beyond the third world axiom attached to us, our capital expenditure should be above our recurrent expenditure. Sure. Because our recurrent expenditure appears to be just about, when you see the breakdowns now, certainly some people will now start telling you how much they use in drinking tea, in the federal, in government house, and all of those. So it's sometimes unimaginable.
So do you think with the relationship between the federal government and the leadership of the Senate, that the federal government or the President Buhari will sign this increase?
Well, the gap between the legislatures and the executive currently, I think the relationship is a little bit tensioned. It's a little bit tense, and there is nothing abundantly anybody could do. But like I've argued in some cases, this is very, very necessary for democracy to thrive. This is my opinion. Okay. And I hold it so much dear to myself. Just like I've argued, if you come into any state, or if you come into any democratic setup, and it is only in democracy that you see that arm of government, which is the legislature. Remove democracy, you don't see it any other place. Sure. So now, having a very wonderful harmony and harmonization between the two arms of government is a dangerous trend for the people, not necessarily for the bourgeoisie, but for the anawims, the hoi polloi, the talawaks of the society. Okay? So when you look at the budget, whether the federal government or whether the executive will append their signature is not, for me, not a necessary concern, because we need that rift. If they disagree with the 6% increase they have done from what was presented to them, let the discussion begin. But at the end of the day, the masses, suffer. Sure. But I think for the sake of the people and for the sake of the economic recovery growth upon which this administration is anchoring to take us away from recession, we need to begin the implementation of this budget. I think there is no any need for the executive to further delay. Okay. Rather, what is most important is for the members of the National Assembly to do their job. And that their job is the job of oversight. You understand? Especially now that we are approaching the election year. It is very, very important that they take the job of oversight, which is their statutory job, very seriously. If they don't do, then I can assure you, we may not come, and I hope you know in Nigeria here, including in states, most of the states do not even complete what they have in a cycle of a budget, and another year of budget comes again. They do another budget, leaving off the other one. This is what happens in this country.
Wow. Well, a lot to be said about the budget, but of course, it's still an evolving matter. We'll see how it pans out in the coming weeks as we go along. But then, Doc, we'll also like to bring to your notice, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a leadership training for prefects in post-primary schools in Anambra State, that is secondary schools. Yeah, there's the leadership training that the government has organized, to train them to be leaders. Of course, we know we are the leaders of tomorrow, and they want to catch them young. Yes, and that is happening presently. It's ongoing. And then we also have another program by the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. They've established an ethical center to maintain ethical standards among their graduates. So you see, it's still about maintaining leadership, making sure that our leaders, our future leaders, are able to handle the country when it's time for them to step into leadership positions. So we're asking, how do you see this kind of issue? I mean, at this point that university students of learning are thinking about ethics, we're talking about corruption do you see the possibility of us having a crop of young Nigerians who will be corruption-free, like the president?
Well, I think you are gradually coming to that point where some of us philosophers and avant-gardes have always been in terms of opinions about the leadership question in the country. You see, it is a bipolar, once again, question. Does it come from top to bottom? When we want to tackle corruption or when we want to breed the new crop of leaders, do we begin from the top to bottom or do we begin from the bottom to the top? It's a dilemma. It's a serious dilemma. So the programs you've mentioned, I have followed them online. I think I've read one or two things about the prefectship. Corruption is endemic in this country. And the endemic nature of corruption is such that the only hope the country has, and indeed the states, is to see whether we can circumvent, or what you call in a typical scenario, to quarantine the youths or the children. When we say quarantine, we mean we remove them away from the society, even if it is a mental removal.
Okay.
So as to take them in another new journey altogether. So I think that exercise is very, very important. It is very, very important because, like I discussed when I was in Abuja last 3 weeks ago with some group of young philosophers, we were discussing the whole idea of learning. The whole idea of learning. What is learning? You understand? And indeed, somebody asked a question very vital. What is the goal of education in Nigeria? Not necessarily just education. What is the goal? Do we have a goal for taking education seriously? Now, these kind of activities that are going on are part of the answerable issues to that question of what is the goal. To target young people from when they are still at the cradle, so that they can understand that what is happening or what they see happening is not the norm.
Okay.
Okay? So I think that is where the best of that exercise can be actually appropriated. But they understand that the system that they are in is not the best. We are coming from a background of colonialism, slavery, and even neo-colonialism. We are coming from a background where it was a fast movement to bring in Nigerian-made civil servants when the British civil servants were going. And therefore, the goal of education at that time was to bring up civil servants that could take over from the British civil servants that were here. That was the goal of education. And that is indeed why some of the universities in Soka, Ibadan, was set up at the time. Now that we have gotten our own indigenous civil servants, in fact, we have enough. What then is the goal of education now? So get the point clear. What we now have civil, that was the goal of education then, to train people in school so that they can take over from the whites. Now that we have had enough of those, we no more have whites working in our ministries, in our parastatals. So now the question is, what then is the goal of education now? We need to define it. And part of these exercises are what we must target. So that these young children, we understand that they are not going to school just to learn and read the national anthem and the pledge. It's not enough. They need to understand and inculcate in them what you call patriotism.
Patriotism.
Looking at, you said, if there is a possibility of doing a mental removal for our younger generation. Question now is, do you think the crop of elders we have has the capacity to do this, to do the mentoring?
Well, we indeed, we cannot run into the fallacy of overgeneralization.
Okay.
It is a dangerous fallacy, and I keep on using the word dangerous because when we start putting certain things in this country, what is dangerous, we must have to alight ourselves that it is dangerous.
Okay.
It is a dangerous fallacy to say that all the elders, or to assume, or even to imagine that there are no elders who could serve as mentors. We will not fall into that. Personally, I will not fall into that. We still can get some of them who actually understands the system very well, especially those who can bridge the gap between the older generation and the new generation. Some saw it. In fact, while I was driving to your program, I was listening to a radio program where a man called and was having beautiful memories of when Nanda Zikiwe was still the president, how they used to see their politicians in the streets, touch them, be with them, and so on. Some say, in fact, he said there was a time when there was never any NEPA fallout, where there was never any shortfall in electricity. As of the time, these were wonderful times when children went to school and universities. They had their lunch and they had everything in the school system. So some of these people came from this background, okay? They came from this background. So they still can mentor these young ones to skew in a line and wait for their turn to take any of the things that they deserve without any need for fast tracking it. That is the situation today. We still have mentors, and in fact, they should serve as those mentors. My generation cannot serve as mentors. We can only do what you call a generational shift talk, but we cannot serve truly as mentors, especially when it comes to bringing alive again what truly Nigeria was.
It's been a hot discussion here in the studio with Dr. Justin Nwachukwu, a PhD holder in philosophy. I think if he's allowed, we can make him a professor because he's been exciting.
Why would he be a professor in the next few years? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really. But then before we go, what would you say about ethics? You know, the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, wants to entrench ethics in graduates. These are people that have left the school system. What is the possibility, do you think?
Well, the possibility is not there because when you graduate a student, you have only done one thing. You have allowed him to live just like when you come to a house of formation. I went through a seminary system, so I understand what a house of formation is. When you are in the house of formation, there are basic guides, just like those who train. There are basic steps you need to take. So when you take a student out of a school system or a university system, it becomes more or less like you have thrown him into the world. Those basic guides that the university would have set up, go for night classes, go for these trainings, and all of those that are involved in waking up, making sure you are in your lecture time, your lectures on time. These are ethical things that you gradually they imbibe. Just like they say, you cannot go through the university without the university going through you. So what that means is that if the university does not go through you, you have only just been there as a mere observer. But if the university goes through you, learning will occur. Because learning involves formation of character. So I think when we lose them at that university setting, in that formation house, immediately they are out in the field. It is difficult to harness them again. Although, if truly we want to enter, because you mentioned ethics, but also some other part of it is like this way, what you call also professionalism. Now, there is new trend that the Minister of Education is trying to bring into equation, where every field of study in Nigeria must begin something akin to what the law association does, called the law school. So if you still, that is still back to formation house.
Okay.
Now that I studied philosophy, I should go to 1 year philosophy school.
Okay.
Not only just because I studied philosophy, but also to know how to practice how to be a philosopher.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc.
Wow.
We'll stop it. I wish we could have lasted even more than this.
Doc will come back, I'm sure.
Yes. It's been exciting with Dr. Justin Nwachukwu, a scholar in philosophy, being with us discussing the 2018 budget and the value system in Nigeria. We'll go on a break now. When we come back, we want to discuss how other ways of making money on the internet.
You know, people get data. Data is the in thing these days, but then most people waste their data. You find that we waste money on frivolities. People just chat and chat their lives away. So I want to tell you what you may not already know, that it is possible for you to adapt your data gainfully and to be very rich. I tell you, in just a moment, we'll be joined by two young people who are doing just that. They'll tell us how. Stay right here.